I want to introduce right now Mel Cholia. Mel, would you come up, please? Mel's Assistant Professor of Business, and he'll have our first introduction of the day.
Thank you. Thank you. Our next presenters can best be described as Renaissance men. Each has used their theoretical and applied knowledge to start and expand a multitude of educational, public, and private enterprises. Our first presenter, Dr. Sean Siebert, carries a large breadth of expertise across many academic, civic areas, which has led him to being a much sought-after panelist, educator, speaker, and consultant. Dr. Siebert has authored many award-winning books and received numerous recognitions for his philanthropic, academic, public, and private sector contributions. Our second co-speaker, Simon Siebert, took his graduate degree from Arkansas State University in digital technology with an emphasis in artificial intelligence. He also has achieved numerous advanced data science certifications, including Python, machine learning, and cybersecurity, to name a few. Currently, Simon serves as Director of AI for Invent Yourself LLC and 50 by Friday AI. Simon's further interests extend into full-stack web development, allowing for scalable, secure, and accessible platforms tailored to meet client needs. It is my pleasure to please present Dr. Sean Siebert and Simon Siebert.
Good morning. It's an honor to be here. I want to offer our sincerest thanks to Missouri Valley College. Simon and I love this place, and we'll tell you about that as we share our story. But really just so honored. Dean Simon, thank you so much for extending us the invitation. To our fellow co-presenters, we are honored to be in your presence. We look forward to hearing you all throughout the day, and it's just a cool thing. So I'll start and tell our story of what is 50 by Friday and how we get standing right here, and then Simon and I bounce back and forth with each other. So I tell people my first life was in higher education. I graduated from the University of Missouri, got my first job in human resources. I was the director of HR for the Department of Internal Medicine. Did that job for a handful of years, and then I went to the Children's Hospital, and I was the CFO of the Children's Hospital and the Children's Miracle Network. I went from there to William Woods University, and I was their executive vice president and dean over the graduate and adult studies programs. From there, I finished my doctorate degree in that journey. I went to Columbia College and taught entrepreneurship there for a handful of years, and that was life number one, and life number one ended in 2012. Life number two started when I launched my own company that same year, and what I tell people is I didn't realize it at the time, but I spent the last 14, 15 years of my life solving community betterment issues. And what does that mean? So in 2012, when I started my company, the community betterment need was jobs. We were on the heels of the Great Recession. The Great Recession ravaged rural America, and it was very, very decimated rural Missouri. And essentially back in 2012, if you wanted a job, the only way you were going to find one is if you created one. And so we put a very concentrated focus on entrepreneurship. And so from 2012 to 2014, I helped build 3 different innovation centers, 2 in Columbia, 1 over in Fulton and Callaway County. Did a lot of pitch competitions and, really focused on kind of the startup side. And that's actually what brought me to Maastricht for the first time when I spoke here years ago. 2014, we built an entrepreneurship program. We took it statewide because I wanted to, instead of individuals that had entrepreneurial skills, instead of having to go to St. Louis or Kansas City, if you had an idea and you were in a rural community in Newburgh, Missouri, then we were going to help you launch that business in Newburgh, Missouri. And that was great success. That got me on the governor's radar. I was his keynote in 2015 and 2016. In 2017, the community betterment issue became opioids. We had just gotten through the oxycodone phase of opioids. We were right in the heart of the heroin epidemic, and there was this new substance called fentanyl that was starting to make its way into our communities, and we didn't know what it was, but it wasn't going to be good. And so they reached out to me and they said, hey, can you help? And so we put together programming, and we continue 9 years later to do that programming where we go into county jails, we go to emergency shelters, we go to recovery groups, we go to a lot of places, and we find people at their lowest point in their darkest place, and we help bring them back. And in that process, we built one of the most effective models of reentry in all of rural America. It was so effective that before Senator Blunt retired out of office a couple of years ago, anytime he would come home to Missouri and he wanted to talk opioids and workforce, he and I would get together, and it's because of his funding and his support that we were able to build a model that is now replicated around the country. 2019 is when Simon started this thing called AI, and Simon and I started that journey. He was in the School Flex program, which meant that he would go to high school for half a day, and then he would come and work with me for half a day. And so we started to stick our toe in this AI thing that we're going to talk about. 2022, the community betterment issue shifted to grief. We had just gotten through COVID. And regardless of what side how you feel about that, we lost a lot of people in a very short window of time, and the impact that started to have in our communities and our workforce was significant. And so what we focus on is grief literacy. We won't talk a lot about that today, but then in 2023, AI, I won't use the words mainstream, but ChatGPT rolled out the first GPT, and it started to become more known in the workplace. And in that time, Simon and I started our AI journey really because there's so much misinformation that exists around AI. And this is one of those things where we don't have the luxury of waiting. And we're going to explain exactly why. So we go out, and for the last 3 years, we have been traveling the country, helping people to understand what AI is not. And in that journey, Simon and I have rolled out 3 different AI platforms. We rolled out our Beacon and Bridge, which we won't focus on much today. But then in 2026, we also created our AI library, and we will talk about that today. So I'm going to kick it over to you, Simon, and you can say a few words for yourself.
Absolutely. This work. Okay. So in 2019, we began our AI journey, and so I am a natural language processing engineer. So back before OpenAI created the Transformer, I got to enjoy the luxury of getting computers to talk to humans, vice versa, back and forth. So a lot of your email spam systems, things like that, that's the kind of thing that I got to work on. And so in 2019, I actually had absolutely zero interest in becoming an AI developer. I really just wanted to hang out with my dad and enjoy the Flex program, so that's kind of the path that I went on. What I really enjoyed doing was I was a track athlete. So I was a 3-sport high school athlete, decided that I wanted to run track and field. And so I actually had the honor of touring this campus twice when I was deciding where I wanted to go. Ended up going to Oklahoma City University for my first 2 years of college. And I wanted to be, I will not be naive enough to say that I thought I could be a professional athlete, but you can't really see life outside of college sports when you're especially in it, you're living it, that's every day. It's like I get the early morning workouts starting at 4 a.m., the practices at 6 p.m., start of the day, end of the day, you live and breathe sports. I figured out very quickly that this probably was not going to be my future. The gentleman on the far right-hand side of that middle image, his name is Zohair Talby. He yesterday became the fastest American marathon runner ever, and I got to train with him every day. And I was like, you know what? This probably isn't for me. And so throughout this journey, I unfortunately suffered a spinal injury my second year at Oklahoma City University, and that cut my athletic career short just like that. And so I was blessed with the luxury of time. And so I got to spend 18 months healing from that injury, but also simultaneously teaching myself skills that are basically have set me up for the rest of this, or for this future career. And so eventually I ended up at Missouri Southern, got to run at the University of Arkansas, a couple of different places. But it's like, I get it. I get the college athletics. I get how hard it is, how fun it is, how rewarding it is. And so I just say to all of the college athletes in this audience, I commend you and enjoy it as much as you can, because unfortunately it is not forever. But anyways, this gets us to this AI journey right here. And so one of the things that we really like to showcase and tell people is this is the most widely used definition of artificial intelligence in the workforce today. So just any technology that enables computers and machines to simulate human behavior. And that is designed to sound as broad as it possibly can be. That way I, as an organization, can throw an AI tag on anything and everything I make, so my shareholder price will go up, so I can charge more for my product, and I'm now an AI company. So by this definition, we have technically had AI around since the late 1940s, maybe even earlier. By this definition, the modern toaster is technically artificial intelligence. That's why you're seeing AI all over the place. So what we're really going to focus on today is the intersection of machine learning, deep learning, and mathematics, because that's when we can really start to see some valuable business results and some valuable optimizations. And so before we go too much further, this is a clear distinction that we like to make. In the United States, we focus almost solely on generative AI. Think large language models, ChatGPT, Microsoft's Copilot, Claude. Generative AI is an AI that's designed to basically create content. So I prompt it, it can write my paper, it can create this image, it can create this code. You ask it, it generates that content. The rest of the world, and a lot of our Fortune 500 companies, are focusing on what's called applied AI. So they're investing hundreds of billions of dollars into these systems that are designed to drive decisions. So think accuracy, optimization, business health, risk. And so as someone who got his career start in working with generative AI, I'd always like to share this slide right here. Because when you make a generative AI system like a large language model, the number one success metric is not actually accuracy. It's plausibility and coherency. So is the answer that a large language model, going to give you, is it plausible? Is it coherent based on the data that I've been fed? That's why you're seeing all sorts of hallucinations. That's why you're seeing all sorts of inaccuracies. This is why it makes stuff up. It is designed to get you a plausible answer in a timely manner. Applied AI is designed for accuracy and precision, but it takes a lot more effort and equity up front. And so basically with its risk factor is data errors. So the user has to have a knowledge of what that's doing. And so we like to share this because generative AI here in the United States is taken off, and it's taken off fast. And so generative AI is the only AI model that I as a developer can sell you off the shelf. No custom, no fine tuning, no custom parameters. You pay me $20, I give you my AI subscription. Applied AI is much more expensive.
So you can go ahead and hit the next slide.
There we
And
go.
so I'll let you talk about this,
Yep.
and I'll get the next one.
I jumped the gun a little bit. So a couple of examples that you're seeing widespread usage. So you have demand forecasting, risk detection, stability monitoring, customer concentration. We do a lot of this work with our manufacturers because overseas, they have not focused necessarily on the consumer side of AI. They have focused on the national security side of AI. They do not treat AI overseas as a matter of economics or a matter of commerce. It is headed by the national security department of all of these major countries and major players in our global economy.
And so this is, part of us being here today, and this is what we do when we're not here and when we're traveling around the country, is we're helping organizations, large and small, shift the narrative to what we should be talking about with AI. Because I said it when it started that this is not something that we can lag. And we'll show you by the end of this presentation why that's critically important, is that we have to understand that AI is here, and we have to understand where it fits inside of education. We have to understand where it fits inside the workforce, because globally, when you start to really understand what China is doing, what India is doing, what Singapore is doing, what South Korea is doing, what Germany is doing, what the European Union is doing, and you understand it from that context, everything about everything instantly changes. And so the first thing, if you're here to say key takeaways, the first key takeaway that I would tell you today is that when we talk about AI, we talk about it for one reason and one reason only: competitive advantage. It's not about, can it write this, change this HR policy? Can it speed do this for me over here, write this memo, do this recommendation letter, release this public relations memo? Though none of those are actually giving it's maybe saving you time, but globally, particularly my international students, this time is viewed differently around the world. And time in other nations is viewed significantly differently than time in the United States. And so they are not saying, oh, save me 10 minutes here, save me 10 minutes here. They are positioning themselves to say, in 25 years, where is my global dominance going to be? And so as you think through using AI, particularly if my business majors take this mindset directly into the organization, basically, so how is this making us better? How is this making us beat our competition? And there's 4 ways that we can do this. We can do this with speed. How is this going to help us get our product to market faster? And in that process, also precision. How is it that, particularly in manufacturing, that we can reduce, some of our waste and our raw materials, and, we can really, think through those, our 4 Ps and, all of that fun stuff. Like, how are we doing this to be precisely accurate? Another way is adaptation. How is this helping to adapt to a world that is changing so fast? And the last and probably the most important, scalability. How can this make us grow faster, more precise, larger, more places, more market share? These 4 things. So when you think about AI, don't think about it from the standpoint of, wow, this saved me time. Think about what is this going to do for my company to give us an advantage that has not been seen in the history of business. And you're about to see in this presentation, we'll show you how other people are actually doing that. So Simon, I'll kick it back to you.
And so this is kind of where we like to start, is that how do we actually leverage AI inside of our organization? And so when we say AI for the rest of this presentation, we are not talking about generative AI systems. We're not talking about AI agents. We're not talking about generative models. We are talking about more of the applied side of things. And we'll show you what an applied AI model looks like a little bit later. But step 1 is automate. What are tasks that we can do that we can automate and we can free up human capital and human labor? And before I go too much further, I will say this. We are firm believers that AI should never replace the human in any capacity. We are firm believers in what is known as AI augmentation. How can we augment every individual inside of our organization to make them work at max efficiency? And that includes caring about their mental health and those other things as well, because those are equally as important. But how can we maximize every single individual inside of our staff so that way we can achieve peak efficiency and we can build on that peak efficiency incrementally? And so step 1 is to automate. Step 2 is to augment. How can we give all of the humans that we have on staff the tools that they need to make themselves operate at peak efficiency? How can we make them smarter? How can we make them faster? How can we free up more time? How can we have person X over here do this process so much faster so they can now help person Y over here? And then lastly, anticipate. So how can we predict things that our own human biases might blind us from? How can we anticipate different things that, how can we keep this machine up running longer? All these kind of micro incremental efficiencies, that's how you gain that competitive advantage. And so I show you this slide right here because what we like to do when we give our AI presentations is to show you what AI looks like under the hood, to actually show you what the code looks like, to show you what the logic looks like, to show you what the learning looks like. And so this right here is what's known as the neural network architecture. This is the engine that fuels both generative and applied AI systems. And so we'll focus on this deep learning neural network right here because this is a lot of what is in practice today. So all of those red circles right there, those are known as your input layer. That's your input nodes. Imagine each layer as your own independent variable. So for forecasting, that's historical data, that's sales data, that's staffing data, supply chain data, industry data. All of the variables that are at play in your certain situation, those are going to be your red circles. Each of these yellow circles here is what's known as a node. Think of a node as a predetermined mathematical function that we're going to bounce all of our input layer and all of our data off of. And so we are going to chain together layer upon layer upon layer of all of these mathematical equations to actually get the desired results. And so we can actually start making strategic decisions based on advanced mathematics. And so we will chain together layer upon layer of all these equations to go get our output layer, whether that's a prompt from ChatGPT, whether that's an output from a forecast, an image from an image recognition model. That's our goal. That's the logic behind almost every single system. And so we show that because this is what an AI model looks like under the hood. And so you are seeing a platform that's known as VS Code. That is what's known as my developer environment, But this is where we actually use the Python programming language to create some of these AI models. And so what you are seeing here is a forecast model that Dr. Siebert will tell you a little bit about.
So who's seen something that looks like that before? I love this. Amen. So so for those that are unfamiliar with it, so VS Code is basically, I like to call it the Microsoft Word for coders and developers. And so, essentially this is where they go to, basically it's the operating engine. And then like Simon said, what you're seeing up there is Python script. And so Python is the coding language that is used to run the vast majority of AI models around the world. And so in this situation, like usually because of IT, we couldn't do it, but we would actually run this model right here in real time for you. But we're going to go screenshot by screenshot and show it to you. But essentially what we have here is, so I live in Crawford County, Missouri. I've served on an economic development board there for several years, and part of our responsibility of that board was to develop the county budget. So every year we're particularly trying to come up with the total taxable sales because that drives about 95% of the budget within the county. And so we got to be accurate with that number, because we got to know, can we give raises? Can we buy pieces of equipment? Can we do the things? And so, we're in that process of, we start that process in February for our budget to go live July 1 to roll around to June 30. So in February of any given year, I'm giving my best guess of what I think the taxable sales that's going to be generated in that county 18 months out. And I'm guessing, and I know it. Now, I'm a good guesser, and I have historical data, and I look at, so in 2023, basically I sat down with Simon and said, okay, no more guessing. We're going to build this forecasting model that's going to give me that number. And so I'll kick it back to you, and you can tell them exactly how.
So what you're seeing on screen here is a micro version of our much larger original model. And so the original model is what's known as an autonomous data pipeline, meaning we constantly pour new data into it. It updates our forecast as we go. And so in this example right here, we have on this screen, our top is that image of that neural network you saw a couple slides ago. This is a version of that image here in the code. So we have our layer of 128 nodes, our layer of 64 nodes, our layer of 32 nodes, all to get our original output. And so this example is designed more so for speed, for the sake of demonstrations, than our actual model. A couple companies that we have the actual model probably wouldn't be too happy if we showed the actual model, so that's why we've got this one up. But normally we chain together between 12 and 24 different layers of these equations so we can ensure that we're getting an optimal result that we can trust and guide decision making off of. And then more importantly, what we like to show all of our manufacturers and all of our businesses that we have is this right here is our custom features dictionary. So for Crawford County, Missouri, the variables that were at play were our micro and macroeconomic factors. And then we like to think of ourselves as the self-proclaimed floating capital of the world. And unfortunately, our county's economy reflects that. So we have a lot of weather data in there. And unfortunately, that's data we can't, or information that we struggle to predict, but that's unfortunately what's at play in this situation. And so the goal of this model right here is we are going to run the simulation for the year 2023 500 times. And basically, we're going to run all of our data through all of those mathematical equations there, designed to give us a forecasting range based on certain risk that we can guide our decision-making off of for the next year. And so when we run this model, this is kind of what it looks like right here. And we can run that entire simulation in between 15 and 25 seconds. So series of gray lines flash across the screen. We're sending, essentially 28 years worth of economic variables through all of these equations at less than a simulation a second. And so when we ran our actual model, our target prediction was $231,192,002.80. Our best prediction was $231,327,700.10. 99.994% accurate. It took us 2 weeks to build this forecasting model and collect all the data. So we were able to free up all of that time to reallocate with a better answer.
So essentially, and we say that, so now in doing this process, something that historically took us 60 days, I can have now in less than 60 seconds. And I can have it, and it's going to be more accurate, and it's going to be more reliable. Now, most people, when I say those words, think instantaneously, well, there goes the human. And my answer to that is absolutely not, because the human is now more important than ever. Because just because I now have that number doesn't mean I know what to do with it. How do I strategically plan around this? What do we do to maximize the efficiency of being able to do this? And so, the power in this is literally, and the beautiful thing about this is every time that I get a new piece of data, I can feed it into there. And so this model is organic. It's ever living. And so this is what you are seeing your Fortune 500 companies do. This is what you are seeing countries around the world invest in. Is how do we get that back to that speed, that accuracy, that scalability? Well, now that I have this number literally less than 60 seconds, I got 59 more days and 23 hours and 59 minutes that I can adapt to this. I can put strategy to this because I can trust what I have here. It's not guesswork. And so as we go through, Simon, anything you want to add on this?
The one thing I will say, and this is where we're seeing a lot, or especially our foreign competitors are investing heavily in this, is the year 2019 we like to point out. So in the year 2019, the state of Missouri saw a record boom in its economy. The United States as a whole saw a record boom in its economy. Every single county in the state of Missouri, except for Crawford County, Missouri, saw its all-time record high. And in the 26 years since Crawford County began tracking this data, it saw its first and only ever regression in taxable sales revenue. And we, for the life of us, could not figure out why. And so in 2019, 4 large FEMA-certified weather disasters hit the state of Missouri. All 4 of them hit Crawford County, 3 of them in the summer, which really hurt our floating industry. And so basically, we could not get our forecasting model more than 80% accurate. Mathematically, we call them acts of God. There's no way we could have predicted that. I like to share that with you because due to the fact that 2019 was so mathematically such an anomaly, we were 99.997% accurate in COVID. We were 99.995% accurate the following year. This is the type of advancements that we can get with technology like this that can really guide our decision making. And so even though 2019 was a historically bad year, our model has learned from that and can adapt from that the deeper and deeper we get into this. And so we showcase this technology with you, and as we kind of go through these next couple of slides, we don't say any of this to scare or to fearmonger. We say this because this will never end up in the American news cycle. So we are partnered with the MEP systems across the United States, and this is the conversation that we're having all across the nation. And so in 2013, China launched their Made in China 2025 initiative. And so since then, it is estimated that they have invested between $300 and $900 billion in creating the world's largest data lake or data pipeline. Every business, every government official, every port, every city, you name it, all connected under one AI system. So if something happens upstream in the supply chain, everybody downstream is already making adjustments so they can always operate at maximum efficiency. They targeted 10 areas that they decided they want to be global leaders in by the year 2050. In the report that we just got in 2025, they're already the industry leader in all 10 of those. They think that their goal is to obtain 50% of all 10 of those markets by the year 2050, all by gaining a 2.2% increase in efficiency year over year. 2.2. They're in it for the long game.
I want to talk about that 2.2 because when you say that after year 1, you sit there, okay, 2.2. But what that needs for American businesses, for American manufacturers, you got to understand how that compounds. Because if they do something and they're 2.2% efficiency in 2026, and we do nothing in terms of our AI investment, so they're at 2.2%. So if they do 2.2% again in 2027, that means that they've gone from 2.2% to 4.4%, and we are still back here at 0. But essentially, it's not the 4.4% because now they've already gained 6.6% because they got the 2.2 from year 1, the 4.4 from year 2. So now I'm going to go to year 3, 2029, and I'm going to be at 2.2% again. So now so you can see how quickly the math, like literally by 2030, if we do not get into this applied AI game, you are already back almost 13% in 3 years. That is an unrecoverable amount for any business. And so this is why making AI and understanding what it is, understanding what it is not, understanding where I should invest, who I should trust, what kind of conversation should I have, what should we be teaching, where should this be embedded in our workforce. The time to have that conversation was actually 4 years ago. So to think that we can wait 2 more years or 3 more years to figure this out, if we think we can wait until 2030 to figure this out, the ship is sunk. Which is why we have partnered with the Manufacturing Extension Partnership and the National Institute of Standards and Technology and the United States Department of Commerce, because we tell them, like, we are not here to fearmonger. We are here to help people have the right conversations. And that's just one country, because now we're going to talk about India.
And so with their new strategic partnership / alliance, India has been given access to certain features of the Made in China 2025 project, and they have launched their Digital Public Infrastructure India initiative. And basically, India is blessed with a population that has more machine learning engineers and data scientists per capita than anywhere else in the world. That also comes with the world's largest population of any country. And so they have basically created a system where all of their tech talents can be given any data set, any resource that they need completely for free, as long as it benefits the Indian economy. And so with our current visa situation in the United States, a large amount of the talent returned back home to them. They are now keeping them there. And so you are starting to see all of our major tech players invest billions upon billions of dollars in India, and they are all getting ready to move a lot of their tech operations overseas. Just Google, Microsoft, Apple, and Amazon, just to name a couple. Where's it going to go? There we go. Japan has taken a completely different approach, and they are probably the most open in the entire globe about what they are doing. And so they are launching what they're calling Society 5.0, a $600 billion project over the course of 2025 to 2030. Their goal is they understand that their country's demographics are going to cause a couple of issues, especially since their younger population has such a difficult task of maintaining their current economic state. And so their goal is to create human collaborative robotics, autonomous systems, smart manufacturing. They have gone 100% all in on AI augmentation. How can we maximize all of the humans in a way that is not only going to make them more efficient, but is not going to burn them out? South Korea has decided they're going to do more of the hardware side of things, semiconductors, components like that. The European Union went for more funding ethical AI solutions, but in reality, they were kind of waiting for Germany to decide what they were going to do. And Germany just last month launched what it's calling Industry 4.0. So its whole goal is it has now created these AI systems that they can use to enhance German engineering. So they already can so now all of their engineers are augmented. They can do more projects. They can do it more efficiently, faster, more precise. And now they can focus all of that extra time on developing new technologies. And so we share all of this with you because what we're going to show you next is in the United States, AI is lagging for three main reasons.
And so we share this to say, again, this is not fear-mongering. This is just shifting narratives and conversations of, are we having the right conversations about AI? Are we, everything that I mentioned, and and we hope that you carry forward some of this dialogue because there's an immense amount of research, study, fascinating, research that can be done, following and studying and understanding what other nations are doing it, how they're viewing it, so we broaden our perspectives to see where does it make sense for us. And so for Simon and I, and this is what we do with our, we want people to understand, where does AI make sense for you? Thinking about it now as a competitive advantage, like how are you using it? What can be gained from this? And so in our conversations, we always like to, we're a problem solution, particularly if you read Diana Kander's book, All In Startup. She loves to talk about migraines. And so this is, what we are constantly looking for is like, what are migraines? And in the AI migraine, right now, there are three reasons that AI adaptation is lagging in the United States. First is it's expensive. I don't know if any of you have looked into IBM's Watson X platform, but the last time that we had a conversation with IBM, it was a $210,000 onboarding fee just for them to give you the keys to the car. Before it even started, you have to pay that $210,000 onboard, and that assumes you have the data scientists, and that assumes that you have the staff on hand that can operate the system. And so for our small to medium-sized businesses, that's just too big of a no. I'm not paying that. The forecasting model that we showed you screenshots of, the most affordable version that we saw in the marketplace for that is a $55,000 annual licensing fee to have access to a platform like that. And again, that's just too big of a pain point for a small to medium-sized business to make that investment. They're not going to do it, and they're not doing it. The second reason that AI adaptation is lagging in the United States is there are lack of AI developers. And as we mentioned, particularly with the kind of the visa situation, a lot of our talent that was skilled in that area returned to their home of origin. And they are there to say, and so the amount of AI developers, individuals that know Python in this country, very scarce. And if they do exist, most likely big tech has gobbled them up. And for those of you sitting in the back, if you want to look for a very desirable job, the last that I saw, Meta was paying an AI developer is around $630,000 annually. And so again, small to medium-sized businesses in this country, that's not something they're going to invest in. And the last thing, and the most important reason that AI adaptation is lagging, is we're capitalists. And data privacy is everything, and I'll be darned if I'm going to share my data, nor should you share your data. And so when you take those three things, expense, lack of a workforce, data privacy, and you put them all together, it creates the perfect storm of why AI adaptation in the United States is lagging, and it's lagging significantly. And so what we have put together here is how do we solve that issue? And this is why Simon and I are standing here today, is because we put together a strategy that says we can solve that issue. We know exactly how to do that. And so what we have built here is an AI library. And so imagine this library, literally like a library that you would go in just right across campus, or if you're local to Marshall, right into the Marshall Public Library, where you would go in that library, and the resource that you need, the tool that you need, they would have it for you. And so the first thing that we tell people to do is when you go into the library is you click on this courses and micro lessons. And when you click on that courses and micro lessons, it takes you to a series of YouTube videos. When you click on that first YouTube video that says install VS Code, so this is why we showed you that model earlier. So VS Code is a free platform. It's open source. You can go out to the internet, you can download that. And so within 4 minutes of being in our AI library, you watch a YouTube video that shows you exactly how to do that. So boom, 4 minutes later, you have VS Code and it's on your device. So after you've done that, then you click on the next video that says install Python. Again, Python is free. It's open source. You go out, you watch our little 4-minute YouTube video. It shows you step by step how to download Python. Boom. Now you have VS Code. Now you have Python within 9 minutes of being inside this library. The very third thing that you do is then once you have VS Code here, you have Python here, how do I make them talk to each other? And so you watch a YouTube video. This one takes about 10 minutes. Again, step-by-step written instructions right there. Within 10 minutes later, you now have VS Code, you now have Python. They are talking to each other. They are operational together. Then you watch about an 11-minute video to run your first Python script, and it walks you through step by step. And first you do a little, you write something to the, you go ahead and talk about this one.
First, you basically so I was blessed with the ability to be a Python tutor for a couple of years. And so all of the things that you need to actually run Python script, we walk you through step by step. So printing something to the terminal, basic mathematics, and then funnily enough to the same machine learning engine that powers 90% of forecasts in America today can also be used to launch a little rocket on your screen that says welcome to the library. And so a fun, easy way to gain access. So that way, once you've done all of that, you can come over, I did have an image of it, to our actual AI library that is filled with all of these AI models designed to answer and tailored to answer business questions. So over the course of my undergraduate and graduate degree, I was blessed with the ability to work with a lot of large corporations, especially in the gas and pharmaceuticals industries. And so they are blessed with a large business intelligence staff, 15 to 20 people actually. And so what they do every day is they are not in charge of making models to make the company money. They are in charge of making models that actually answers business questions that they need to guide to strategic thinking. So what is our sales going to be like in the short term, in the long term? What's our business health? Are there different anomalies? Every model that they made was designed to answer a specific business question that they in the organization needed answered every single day. And so our goal with this library right here was how can we create some of those models that have historically people have been priced out of? How can we create these models in a way that the everyday user could access them? You get that. Yep. And so what we have here is our total sales forecast. And so when you click on a certain model, there's always this overview page that tells you what it is, what it does, what you get when you run it. And all of our models follow a 3-step process. So first, we got to prepare our data, because we didn't mention this, but normally we would give our longer presentation. We walk through how AI models are actually made. And if any of you in the back are looking for a great career, you can make a killing in data cleaning. Got to have data to fuel these systems. Garbage in, garbage out. And so we'll clean the data, we'll aggregate the data, get the data 100% AI ready, all for the user. Then we have our run the forecast, which is our actual forecasting engine, then our view the results. But these models all come with these videos that walk the user step by step throughout the entirety of the process. The goal of this is upskilling the user just as much as it is answering that business question. And so in this instance, we walk them through like extracting their data from a CRM and an ERP system. How do you get that data into a project folder? How do you get that project folder into VS Code? In a way that anybody, regardless of their age, regardless of industry, that they can do this and they can have access to this themselves. And so we'll walk them through step by step this process. But more importantly, when you actually click on that Prepare the Data tab, this is a Python script that is already pre-trained, pre-coded. You as a user just have to press copy code, connect your data to this Python script that we teach you how to do, and this will clean your data, aggregate your data, get your data 100% ready to go to run this AI model. Then you come over to this model script right here.
And I'm going to pause.
Yep.
So in doing this, because I know what we just said was a lot, but essentially it's a very simple process, because step one to the data privacy, how do you keep your data private? You download VS Code to your own device. You download Python to your own device. That means everything that you run is local. And when you have your CSV drug over into your VS Code platform, you can literally turn off your Wi-Fi, disconnect from the internet. You don't need any of that to run these models. And so your data is 100% secure, local, cannot be hacked, cannot be touched because it never left your operating system. Boom, that box is checked. How do we run these models if I don't have a Simon? Because I'm blessed, I have a Simon, and I'm keeping my Simon. Because the perfect solution to this is every company in the United States, if you had your own AI developer, you don't have to pay $210,000 in onboarding fee because they can write all of that code for you. And so how do we address this when there is a shortage of people that have this skill? How do we do this? And the way that we do it is like the code is 100% pre-written. And so all you have to do is, because you have downloaded VS Code, you open up VS Code, it's a blank screen just like Microsoft Word. You go into that library, you hit that copy code button that's right there on the right-hand side of the screen. You hit copy, you go into VS Code, you hit paste. Now that AI model will run for you entirely. You have to do nothing. Literally nothing. Drag your CSV file over. So the three models that Simon talks about, it cleans your data. It runs the model on a very high-powered AI, that we showed you the screenshots. You will have your forecasting model for 12 months in less than 9 seconds. And from there, then if you have, and you can talk about Simon, Power BI and some of the visuals.
We always encourage users, if they use a Power BI or another visualization software, the outputs from the forecast can absolutely be plugged straight into those, and you can create some really cool visuals to take to shareholders, take to meetings, you name it. If you want quick visuals, we also have a visualization script that's going to walk you through every step of your forecast, explain the forecast to you, but also tell you what decisions you should make based off the direction your forecast is heading. And one of the things that we like to mention with our models is, I know it's a little hard to see right here, but this right here is what's known as the terminal. And inside the terminal of all of these models is a built-in data scientist. And so a lot of you that are paying attention to AI in the news, you see this thing, the black box. We can't explain what our AI model does. We can't explain how our AI model got to this answer. All of the models in the library come with its built-in data scientist that walks you through every single step of the process, what the AI is doing, from validating your data, cleaning your data, the math and the equations that were used to get your actual forecast outputs. It will walk you through every single step of the process so that when you get your forecast number, when you get your forecast range, you can take that to management and be like, here is how we got this number, here's the math behind this number, this is why we can trust this number, and base strategic thinking off of that.
And you can see, and we'll just give you a couple of screenshots of what the code looks like, and you can bounce through those, Simon. Mm-hmm. And this is, so back to those visuals. And so part of, the 3-step process, cleans the data, runs the model, gives you the visual. And so these are your visuals right here that you can see, and you can follow it. And we won't go full nerd on you in terms of what that means, but literally you can have this in seconds. And so this is what we've got businesses using all around the world. And so, but this one right here, we want to spend a second on. And Simon, this is your baby, so I'll kick it over to you.
So over the course of time, working with these different business intelligence departments, they ask versions of the same question tailored to their business. And so our goal was, how can we have, our goal is we're starting with 10, this library is ever growing. We're just waiting for businesses to tell us what models we should actually add for them. What questions do they need answered? These are the 10 that we decided to start with. So we have our prediction models, so what will happen next versus what will happen soon. We have our business health model, so are we improving? Are we stable? How did we change versus before? We have our customer and revenue risk models, our risk and early warning system models, which are designed to find different trends and seasonalities that we might miss so we can act on them before it gets too late. And once you've run those 9 models and you have a total overview of your business health, we then have this seasonal exposure map. So if we're going to grow 30%, it's going to tell us what our hot months are. It's going to tell us what our cold months are, so we can get our cold months warmer and keep our hot months hot.
So, and to my students back here, like this slide right here, this is your future. And if you want to knock the doors off your interview, if life is coming, if that next chapter of life is coming at you and coming at you fast, study this slide right here, because this right here literally changes the direction of what AI is for. Instead of using it to write policies and procedures, it answers core business questions. And back to my statement at the beginning of, is AI going to replace the human? Well, not in our world. Because in our world, I give 2 concrete examples, and I want you guys to remember this. The first one is that just because a business knows that it's going to grow by 30% because I've ran this forecasting model and I know that I'm going to grow. And I don't say this to be condescending or to imply that people aren't educated or talented, but just because a business knows that they're going to grow by 30% doesn't mean that they know how to do it. And the example that I give is, if you know you're going to grow by 30% and you're in manufacturing and you panic buy and you bulk buy your steel at this price point and you just blew through your entire profitability of that 30% growth because you bought steel at the wrong time. Like, we assume that people know how to execute on the data, and the answer is this is where brilliant minds come in. We can manage that growth. We can plan for that growth. This is how we maximize our efficiency. The other thing that we like to share with people is like that total sales forecast. And I really want you to lock in on this way of thinking, because we have to literally have this blatant conversation with every single one of our users, because you can run that model. Most people say, oh, I'm going to get my total sales for the entire year. And I use these words, well, that just depends on how well you partition your data. Because you can run this model by product, you can run this model by sales rep, you can run this model by sale region, or by region, depending on how you want to study your data. We had a nonprofit reach out to us because they were interested in applied AI, and at first we were kind of like, okay, we weren't anticipating that, but here's where that conversation went. We really dove in and took a deep dive into their fundraising. And so instead of saying this is our total dollar amount that we're going to get for fundraising, we partitioned their data and we studied gifts from $0 to $100, from $100 to $250, from $250 to $500, $500 to $1,000, $1,000 to $5,000. You can follow that. We partitioned it segment by segment because overall fundraising was increasing. They found that, oh, wow, females in this demographic that give between $250 and $500 is decreased by 95%. So now we can rethink our entire social media strategy, our advertising strategy. How do we drive this one back up? And so understanding the partitioning of data and this thing right here that these brilliant faculty are teaching you every day, when you start to look at it that way, and I assure you, if you give that example that I just gave you in an interview, and you can pretend like you were my intern because I just hired you for the last 30 seconds. Boom. So that example I gave you is now yours. They would see the brilliance in your mind to say, wow, I never thought to study my data like that, because historically no one has presented to me in a way like that. And this is where you investing in yourself and investing in this education is more important now than it ever has been. And so, Simon, I'll kick it back to the next slide. And so
one of the things that we always like to talk about is, we have talked about AI as a competitive advantage. And to treat it as such a competitive advantage, the goal is, what are the questions that we need to answer, whether that's about me, myself, or whether that's about the organization I'm working for. If you can find a way to find an answer to a question, there's your competitive advantage. And so we always say, what is the first step? And so we do a lot of AI road mapping with a lot of different organizations. And the first step that we always tell them, put a whiteboard up on a wall and have all of your managers, all of your employees come down. Like, what is the question that they themselves need answered? Like, if I have an answer to that question every single day, everything about everything changes. What's that question? And then you can slowly narrow down that question to 2 or 3. We always call it the red light, green light system. So now that we have our 3 questions, okay, we'll start with question 1. Do we have the data for that? Can we, if we have the data for it, it's ready to go, we'll give that a green light. We'll actually see if we can start potentially trying to answer that question. If we have to edit a couple processes or there's like 1 or 2 small things that we need to get, we'll give that a yellow light, like maybe not right away, but we can work towards doing that. And then our red light questions are ones that just it's not in our budget, not in our time frame. We can't answer that yet. But once you have that green light question, we'll start small, build a pilot, find a way that maybe it's, generating code on a large language model. Like what's a way that you can start small answering that question and then slowly build off of that? We tell a lot of our organizations when it comes to starting this, if you have 1 successful question answered, you will spend more time building and answering that first question than you will on 2 through 10. Once you create that system, once you develop that line of thinking, it just compounds over and over and over again. And you can start seeing those incremental efficiency gains just like our overseas competitors are.
And so the one question that I didn't answer before we turn it over to Q&A is we talked about data privacy. We talked about accessibility to the code, but we didn't talk about cost. And so, and this is not here to sales pitch, but I feel like I owe you this as an educational setting, is that so we set the cost. And what we did to make this affordable is that we set up a licensing fee, and it's $175 a month. And every organization that signs up can have up to 5 users on that license. So whether you have 1 person using it or have 5 people using it, it's the same amount. So I'm not laughing off $2,100, but $2,100 is it is a price point that allows people the level of comfort to stick their toe into this AI space that they need to stick their toe in. And what we're doing in that process is we call this model, it's as much as an apprenticeship style of learning as it is a data source generator. Because within the organizations, because that's what we tell people, if I signed up for that platform and it's just Sean's responsibility to learn how to use it, if Sean gets frustrated, if Sean can't understand it, we just, we're done. We throw our hands up at it, I'm out. But if you've got a team of 5 people and everybody has access to it and everybody is learning together, then you will concurrently, within that, you're upskilling your team. You are building your own business intelligence department with staff that already exist at a price point that you can afford, because once you get inside of VS Code and start playing with it, it's just like Word. It's just like Excel. You learn how to use it. We allow organizations to take our code that we have pre-written. We actually meet with them and say, hey, if there's a model that you want that we don't have, we will spend our office hours. We do office hours every week. You can copy our code. You can paste it in Claude. You can give Claude these certain 3 prompts, and that will allow you to build upon the foundation that we've given you. And the response has been overwhelming. When we find people, because I loved when I said, who's seen VS Code? And I saw probably half the hands go up back there. You all, if you had access like this, literally, you would learn Python within probably less than 6 months.
I would agree.
And if you can do that, everything about your future changes in ways that you can't even imagine. And so I know we are right at about 10:20. We were going to take the last 10 minutes to, or Simon, did we miss out any? We got one slide?
That was our last one.
We are going to hand off one of these mics. Certainly that's us right up there. So if you hit that QR code or you take that screenshot, that takes you directly to us. But we are going to do some questions and answer any thoughts for the final 10 minutes, if that works for everyone.
Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you.
So we'll get one of these mics here, and I know there'll be some questions, so. Milena has the microphone. We'll start back there.
Hello. Great presentation. That was amazing, honestly. Question. So I had like 3 questions, but you answered 2 of them, so that was awesome. So the one question I still have is to practice and learn how to utilize these models, right? Are there any places where you can get the data to kind of put into these models, or is there a certain way we can go about finding and getting this data?
So that's a great question, because one of the things that we like to tell a lot of organizations is, so when data it's before our current economic situation, data was actually arguably the most expensive currency in the United States. I was sick of a gigabyte of data would go from anywhere between $5,000 to $7,500, depending on the type of data you had. That being said, there's a website called Kaggle, Kaggle, which is basically designed by data scientists for future data scientists. So it's got thousands of different data sets from, if you're a sports fan and you want to make something, like from all of the different box scores to all sorts of manufacturing, retail, e-commerce. If there is a data set for it, there will be an example of that on that website.
Hello, great presentation. My question is, what do you see as the opportunity that higher education is underestimating right now in utilizing AI and preparing our students?
Test 1, 2. Okay, we're back. Thank you for that question. This is, I love what you just asked, and I think that's part of the reason why we're here, is that because there is a conundrum of what is the limitations of generative AI, recognizing that there can be some academic integrity issues, but yes, there are also some workforce expectations. This is why we really bring forward the applied AI conversation, because I feel like, and this is not critical of any institution in particular, but across the board, there is a lack of resources being allocated, conversations being had that focus on the applied AI side, because globally, that's what drives. So, and you've seen this, because one of the main challenges with generative AI is that no one has yet to make a profit, and that includes your generative AI companies, ChatGPT. Like, where is the ROI on it? And right now, there is not really proven to be any ROI on generative AI, which is where I think it opens the opportunity for higher education and all of education to focus on this applied AI where there is a return on investment. And how do we teach it? And how do we study data? And how do we ask better business questions? Because in there, I think, which is the heart of what academia is all about, is asking the right questions. And so focusing on that, teaching on that, putting content in that area, I think would be an extremely beneficial way to, have conversations that guide what does AI mean to us on this campus. Simon, anything you'd add to that? Thank
Anybody
you.
else?
I have a question. You mentioned Beacon and Bridge. And even though you weren't planning on talking about them, I think we should, if you would, tell us a little bit about what they are and what
Absolutely.
purpose they have and what was the reasoning behind them.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And so I'll hand it over to you. So we rolled out 2 AI platforms in 2025. The first one is Beacon. And the reason that we rolled out Beacon was back to scalability. I'll get back to that competitive advantage. And so Beacon, I call it our human bot. There's really no other way to, and it sounds like you call it a human bot. That makes a lot of sense. You're smart. But essentially this is what it does is, and I have to give this example, and I've got time to do it. And so I have another son. He's in high school, and I was at a baseball tournament in Salem, Missouri about a year ago, and I'm sitting in my luxury box, which I'm just kidding. It's a lawn chair out in the outfield. So I'm sitting there hanging out watching this baseball game, and there's a ground ball hit to the second baseman, and the second baseman fields it, but when he fields it, he kind of like hurries his throw, and he throws it, and he blows the ball straight past the first baseman, drills the fence, makes an error, the kid's safe, and second baseman's already kicking rocks, and he's in his own head. But then the coach yells from the dugout, he goes, "It's not a grenade." And then everybody in the audience starts, all the fans, everybody starts snickering, and so within the very next ground ball, boom, drilled, goes straight between the first baseman's leg. Very next batter up, ground ball to the shortstop. He grabs it, throws it 6 feet over the first baseman's head. The next kid that comes up gets drilled so hard in the back. I don't know if he stood up to walk yet or not. Smoke that dude. And so basically you can see what happened. In total, the team made 6 errors that inning. And so when the coach made the comment, he didn't just get in the second baseman's head, he got in everybody's head. And so instantly watching that, I just said that, I was like, man, how many ball fields is this happening in every day? How many locker rooms is this happening every day? How many manufacturing workforces is this happening every day? Classrooms where, boom, somebody just makes an off-cuff comment and everybody's done. And Gen Z is known as the anxious generation. There are more individuals in this generation that are diagnosed with some sort of mental wellness issue than any other generation in the history of mankind, only to be overtaken by Gen Alpha. And so just, basically I saw that happen and I was like, man, what if there was a tool, a resource that existed that basically was right there on that phone that gave somebody a mental reset, like boom. If that second baseman had something on their phone where they could walk over and they can be like, man, I just made a bad mistake. I made a big error and I'm in my own head, and boom, they had something right there that was available to them that could get them balanced instantaneously, so that they can be ready to go bat 2 batters later. They can be ready to go back to the field just like that. Like, what if that tool existed? And so I started to talk to Simon. I started texting him, and so that's what bore out Beacon. Is that Beacon is basically, it can be, I call it a companion, and it's there for you 24/7, 365, but we did everything that the other large language models didn't. We put safety guards in place. There are only 2 conversations that you cannot have with Beacon. You cannot have a conversation about harming yourself. You cannot have a conversation about harming someone else. If you do either one of those 2 things, Beacon immediately shuts that conversation down, triggers that crisis filter so that we know that there's a person that needs immediate help right away. And so, but you can, when you think of that, you think of immediately like, okay, that's just for people, on the mental health side of things. But actually, it's for everything. So we have organizations that are using it because basically you can, hey, I've got an employee, they're on their phone quite a bit. I don't know how to handle this situation. Can you tell me exactly what to say to them, because I need to address this issue, but I don't want to make them mad. Tell me what to say, exactly how to say it. Boom, you've got your answer. Or it can go over from, wow, I'm in a workplace, I've never been here before, everybody's kind of mean and angry and I don't feel like I fit in, I feel like I'm having an anxiety attack, I'm going to actually walk out the door and leave, what do I do? And boom, right there it can give you a grounding technique. Let's do 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And so this tool can be used to basically, it's consistently designed to bring people back to a place of balance, to navigate them back out into the real world, to solve the problem that they're dealing with, because we can't solve it here on a screen. So it teaches individuals, how do I make this problem actually go away? So our second platform was Bridge, and Bridge was Simon's baby, so I'm going to let him talk about that one.
So my wife is a board-certified behavior analyst. So she primarily works with autistic children between the ages of 6 months and 5 years old, all with the goal of getting them ready for kindergarten. And so she has been 3 different clinics during her working career, and we saw the same statistic every single place she went. At maximum capacity, her clinics can service 10 children and 10 families. Their waiting list is between 200 and 300 children long. And so I asked the question, what is happening to those children that are on the waiting list? Like, where are they getting their resources? And the number one answer we got to that question was mom blogs, Reddit posts, which aren't bad, but that's not professional help. And we're not saying that this application is, but basically we created an AI-powered search engine that's all things behavior. So I, as a parent, can enter the behavior that my child is experiencing, and I will get a list of strategies that basically on data sets trained from BCBAs that they can begin implementing to help with these behaviors, to help them get kindergarten ready, to help learn these skills before they grow older. And so Bridge is so the original version of ChatGPT was designed to be Google's competitor. It was not designed to be the generative system that it is today. And so Bridge kind of takes a lot of those key traits from the original version of large language models of how can this be a search engine? How can this pull from data sets and only from those data sets that we can constantly ensure that we're putting the right strategies at the right time, at the right age group based on that child right there.
The whole point, and that's why we call it Bridge, is again not replacing the human, because if you live in a metropolitan area, access to a BCBA is possible. But if you live in rural America, non-existent. And so who supports those individuals? And so basically having the ability to pull your phone out of your pocket and you have a BCBA in your back pocket at any time of the day, like what can that do for families? What can that do for school districts? And that's what we've been able to do with those. So thank you, Dean, for bringing that up. We appreciate that.
Thank you. Do we have any questions?
Hi there. Question from back. I have a delay on my. Hang on. All right, sorry, I'm hearing my program in my ear like 2 seconds later. First of all, for my social networking class, Industry 4.0 should not be a new term for you. We talked about it a few weeks ago, talked about it last year, so I'm glad that came up in the presentation today. Also, like one of the things that I have some friends who are going through some transitions for other systems, and they're looking to get into AI, but they have no idea what they're doing. The cleaning up the data, I love that because they're not doing that. The other thing is, like, how do you get AI to measure intent through your programs? Because what I'm finding is a lot of times people put in questions, but they're the wrong questions. So they're getting wrong answers, and they don't know how to verify that information because the question's wrong to start. And so it's garbage in, garbage out, kind of like okay, I asked this resource, here's the answer. They run with the answer, and it's completely wrong, even though the AI itself is not hallucinating. It's just minimizing friction because it's not there to create create conflict. So how do you, through all of this, navigate that path to say this is what intent, what are you trying to do? Here's the path for that.
Fantastic question. Love that. And this is where we help people understand this is what it is. This is what it is not. What we actually do with the company is we roadmap with them. The very first meeting that we have with people is before we even do anything, and that includes even the library, is we have a conversation with them. And we help them to understand, hey, tell us about your business model. Tell us, what are here, and that's why we have the questions. Here are the questions right now that, forget the AI. What do any of these, are these pain points? And if these are not your pain points, then let's have the conversation about identifying what is your pain point, because you're exactly right. It is all about asking the right question to send yourself in the right direction. And, because in this case, even if what I tell people is like, AI has no problem lying to you, just as much as it has no problem giving you the answer to the question that you asked. But again, taking you down the complete wrong direction. You're like, oh man, this did more harm than good. And that's why we like to talk about, hey, this is what it isn't, and this is how it should be used, and this is the way that you should be using it, because the amount of people that are using it for the wrong reasons, particularly asking it health-related questions and all of these things, we're like, humans are good. We like humans, but it is literally we have a very mindful conversation with people to address exactly what you just brought up every single time, because that is the first critical step of understanding it. What it is not. What are we really trying to do with it, and let's make sure that that's what we're actually doing.
And to piggyback off that just a little bit, our big goal with this, especially with applied AI, is it's not necessarily a new way of thinking, but it's a new way of guiding decision making. And so that involves getting comfortable with a platform and training a group of people on this process. So how can we understand the mathematics to answer this question? How can we understand what data is designed to answer what question, what type of data, how clean that data is? How can we format that data to fit into our equation to get the right thing that we actually need answered? And so it's never, we always, that's what we prefer to do with teams, is so that way it can pinball ideas off of each other. That way you can actually all learn and grow and find key areas that you really want to tackle.
Probably time for one more question. If not, we'll obviously they'll be around for the lunch as well. So again, thank you very much, Simon and Sean. Wonderful presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We are staying. Simon has his laptop. We will connect to the Wi-Fi around the lunch. If you want to actually see that forecasting model run real fast, catch us up here and we'll show that to you. So
thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Now's a good time to get your survey out. If you haven't done that, scan it and complete the survey. And at the end of our last presentation, we'll announce the winners of the $20 gift cards. We're going to start our next presentation at 10:45, so just a few minutes and we'll get started with the next one.